Alors, bonjour à tous et à toutes. Soyez les bienvenus à notre second événement TNT de cette année académique, de cette année universitaire. Euh, Aujourd'hui, on a le plaisir et l'honneur d'avoir une conférencière vraiment spéciale, la professeure Florentina Armaselu de l'Université de Luxembourg. Merci beaucoup d'avoir accepté notre invitation. Hi, everybody. Good to see you guys. Welcome to our second lecture of our TNT series this academic year. We have the pleasure and the honor to have today Professor Florentina Armaselu of the University of Luxembourg, who kindly accepted our invite to lecture, to give a talk today as part of our series. I will read a bio that she kindly shared with us, and then we'll move on to the lecture per se. And after that, we'll have the Q&A. Alors, je vais présenter notre conférencière aujourd'hui. Comme j'ai dit, nous sommes très, très enchantés d'accueillir la professeure Florentina Armaselu. Je vais lire une très brève présentation et après ça, on va démarrer la conférence et après ça, on a prévu des questions et réponses et alors vous êtes encouragés chaleureusement de poser des questions, de faire des commentaires, etc. La conférence sera présentée en anglais, mais vous êtes encore une fois invité de poser des questions en français aussi, en anglais bien sûr, mais si vous préférez en français, tout à fait. Okay. So Florentina Armaselu is a research scientist at the Luxembourg Center for Contemporary and Digital History, C to the second power, DH, is that the acronym? University of Luxembourg. Her educational background includes a PhD in comparative literature and a master's degree in computer science from the University of Montreal, Canada, small world, and studies in computer science and philology at the University of Craiova, Romania, small world again. She was involved in teaching and research projects in computer-assisted language learning, natural language processing, digital editions and interface design at the Faculty of Letters, University of Craiova, Romania, the Department of Computer Science and Operations Research of the University of Montreal, the Northside Incorporated, R&D, Montreal, Canada, and the Centre Virtuel de la Connaissance sur l'Europe, CVCE, Luxembourg. Currently, her research and teaching interests target the areas of computational text analysis and text interpretation, text encoding, human-computer interaction, and the semantic web, and their applications in digital history and digital humanities. Professor Armaselu, thank you so much for accepting our invite. Again, we're thrilled to have you here today, and we're so looking forward to this really, really interesting lecture, this talk on zoomable text and the metaphor of scale in digital humanities. Merci encore une fois, Madame la professeure Armaselu, d'avoir accepté notre invitation. Dear Florentina, welcome to our TNT lecture series. And without further ado, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chris, for this invitation. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session today. And I will apologize from the beginning for the background noise. So I have some birds in my room, so I hope it is not too disturbing for you, so their contribution to my presentation. So I will start sharing now my slides. I hope you can see them. Okay, and I will switch to the presentation mode, so to the slideshow. Okay, so now it should be more visible. Okay, so I will start with a short introduction, actually talking very briefly about some definition of scale and zooming and some questions that I would try to address today. Then I will talk a little bit about metaphor perspectives, among many others. And I will present some examples of scale metaphors in digital humanities. And we'll continue with examples from this idea of zoomable text. And we'll finish with some conclusions. So then the concept of scale will be understood here in a general sense as a gradual series of elements that are usually related to notions such as size, extent, or degree. And zooming, actually, it is also a concept that you are very familiar with from the visual domain and cartographic domain as well. Sorry, is the presentation still visible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Sorry. And so the idea of zooming is of focusing on an object, and that idea is that there is a changes of distance from the observer to the object. So a variable scale, a variable distance from the observer to the object. So the questions that I will try to address today. So what is the meaning and aim of using this concept in digital humanities? Is there any metaphorical aspect to this? And is this useful, and for what is this useful? And can this metaphor of scale and zooming help us imagine new ways of visiting concepts or creating knowledge in digital humanities, of analyzing and interpreting data? And also what type of metaphorical scenarios we can imagine, for instance, to create and interpret knowledge in a certain form, like textual form, but also that can also include image as well. So there are different theories of metaphor, and I will just refer here to the experientialist perspective, which in the view of Lakoff and Johnson, consider metaphor as one of our basic mechanisms of understanding our experience. So in this view, the primary function of metaphor is actually to provide a partial understanding of one kind of experience by the lens, by means of another kind of experience. And one of their example is the metaphor argument is war, actually that allows to structure the action we perform when arguing by a vocabulary that can be understood in terms of war. And it is why we have some kind of a semantic field when we refer to arguments like attacking or seeing the partner in conversation, in arguing as an opponent of winning or defeating, or other kind of elements from this vocabulary of war that can be used via this metaphor. Another perspective is the interactionist cognitive perspective, when metaphor is actually considered an unconventional way to describe an object, which is called a target, as another object, which is called the source. And this by using an interaction model that actually involves a set of source and target concept networks, and that are reorganizing and restructuring the worldview of the cognitive agent. And some examples of different types of metaphors from this view is the similarity-based metaphor. For instance, the sky is crying, when we already have some kind of similarity between the target and the source before the metaphor is creating. We can also imagine some kind of setting about something of extreme sadness, and the similarities between raining and the tears. Or another type, it's the similarity creating metaphor, which is even more innovative and can be found in poetic language, but also in the domain of science, when there is no previous similarity, but this is created at the same time with the metaphor. And it is this beautiful verse, the fog comes on little cat feet, that may be considered as similarity creating metaphor. So before that, maybe we didn't think of a similarity between fog and cat, but after that, we can think of this idea of coming, of silently coming to a place that can create this kind of similarity between the fog and the cat. And finally, I will refer to the domain of human-computer interaction, where a user interface metaphor is actually used as a device for explaining some functionality of the system or of the structure by asserting a certain similarity to another concept, for instance, from the real world. And here we have the example of the trash can or the recycle bin, where we have a similarity from the real object with an object in the interface to explain or to better understand the management of files. Then, after this introduction to metaphor, I will move to some examples in digital humanities where the scale metaphors are used. And one of them is the macroscope. Maybe some of you already know that actually comes from a term coined by Piers Anthony in a science fiction novel, and it is referring to a device that is able to focus on at different locations in space and time, and to cover a range of scales from subatomic to extragalactic level. And what Hitchcock is actually suggesting to use, how to use this metaphor in our work with big data, for instance, is actually to try to capture with our tools this global image, but without actually losing hold or sight on the other end of the macroscope. So, and of the levels, the every point in between. So the idea is that when we build a macroscope, this kind of tool in digital humanities, it is then to, along with this view of this image of a high distance, like the distant blue marble view of Earth, as was first taken by Apollo 17, we should keep hold also of the smallest details, and to have this possibility as well of close reading, which is considered by Hitchcock as one of the main characteristics and qualities of the humanities scholars. And it is what they can bring to the domain. So this view on the world of small data, together with the global, to have also this view on the particular and on the specific, together with the universal. And what Hitchcock and his team actually created, they created a tool that is considered to be some kind of an implementation of this metaphor of the macroscope. It is a view, a tool that allows to explore the data set from old Bailey, which contains accounts of trials from Old Bailey in London. So the proceedings of these trials from the 17th to the 20th century. And this environment actually allows the user to have a global view on the data set, as you can see here. The different colored dots actually are referring to different kinds of offenses. There are also elements related to the gender and the verdict and the number of words in each of the trials. And but there is also the possibility to access the testimonies themselves by hovering on the points and zooming to a particular trial. A second metaphor that I will refer to is that of scalable reading proposed by Mueller, which is in a way related to that of a macroscope. Starting again from this idea of combining the close reading and the distant reading together, and having the possibility of changing perspective from a bird's eye view to a close-up analysis, and actually to explore and to analyze the shared patterns across large data sets, but with this possibility to go to the data itself. And actually Mueller, he did some analysis using a subcorpus from early modern plays, which is integrated in a larger project now, a larger collection online, where you can search the collection by words or combination of words, having some kind of sorting by frequency or by author, and you can also zoom in and go to the text itself and see where the words are actually appearing in the context. Another metaphor related to scale that it is used in digital humanities, and especially in the area that is called today spatial humanities, and actually is trying to combine GIS technology with some other forms of interpretation and exploration that are particular to the humanities area. So it is that of a deep map, which can actually combine multimedia elements with GIS elements, and to create this possibility to explore the tangible and not tangible dimensions of a place, and also to take into account topological and relational aspects that can be considered at different scales. And also this idea not considering only Euclidean geometry or very precise measurement, but also the idea of having other kinds of exploration of the place, as I said, using methods or views from the humanities, and that enables multiple pathways of discovery. And here you have an example from the deep map projects. So actually there are projects that were created by students, participated in a course from the Harvard University. And in the example, actually you have an old map which is trying to reveal the theme or the topics of violence, politics and memory in 19th century Paris. And the idea is that you can explore different zones on the maps, and when clicking on them, you have additional information that can take the form of multimedia or text and images that can explain more what happened in that place and bring a rich perspective on the place and on its meaning. There is also the possibility to explore the map through a timeline and select hotspots that contain more information, and as well to zoom in and zoom out into the map. And finally, another scale metaphor that it is known in DH is that of long zoom, proposed by Stephen Johnson, when actually it is again this idea of identifying every scale from the very large to the very small, and being actually able to understand how much changes on a certain level can create and can influence actually the changes that can occur on the next level. And in this seminar, Johnson referred to one of his previous books, The Ghost Map, The Story of London, which is actually describing how a physicist, John Snow, discovered the theory of water contamination that caused cholera in London at that time, and how this actually discovery implied a nested set of scales from the level of city data systems, because he used some kind of ghost maps in his experiments and in his research. Neighborhood, so isolating or referring to certain region in London, to humans, organs, and microbes, finally. And actually how these changes at the microscopic level produced changes in the city. Johnson also referred in the seminar to a game, Spore, that actually allows for designing different scenarios at different levels, starting, for instance, with cells, with creatures in the tribe organization, then more advanced or evolved civilization and space itself. So I don't know if there are questions until now, or
Well, maybe you should go on. We
okay.
talk and yeah.
Okay, so I will continue then, and we will have the questions at the end.
Right.
Thank you. Then I will refer to this idea of zoomable text that actually was inspired by a fictional primer that was proposed in Neil Stephenson science fiction novel, The Diamond Age. And it is actually about a primer that a little girl, Nell, is using. And the primer actually is expanding itself when the little girl is asking questions. And the idea was also inspired, actually I came to the book via another reading of Marie-Laure Ryan's about immersion and interactivity. And this idea of possibility of an interactive, immersive book. And here there is a fragment from Stevenson's novel. So this sort of thing no longer surprised or upset Nell because it had happened hundreds of times during her relationship with the primer. Besides, she had known from the very first day Harv had given her the book how the story would come out in the end. It was just the story was unfructuous. It developed more ramifications the more closely she read it. So the idea of the book was that the degree of interaction, of immersiveness and interaction were correlated, and actually this book expanded as the user interacted with it. So the question that I asked myself at that time was how can be imagined a model of text when the user can implicitly express his or her curiosity about a text by interacting with it, and the text can be expanded. And here, actually, I thought at the metaphor of zoom in and zoom out, which is, I think, closer to the cartographic metaphor, because at every level, when you zoom in, you get a more knowledge perspective and more detail about or compared with what was on a surface level. And actually the model is considering the text that can be structured on different levels of details. And we have different units that I called Z lexias, inspired by lexias, the units of reading in Barth's view. And actually a Z lexia can be expanded on the deeper level. And we can have a parent that will engender a more detailed fragment or several fragments which are more detailed on a deeper level. And the user can actually explore this via zoom in and zoom out. So the term of Z-text is actually related to this movement back and forth or up and down along with the Z-axis. So usually we have the X and Y axis on a page, but if the text is structured like this, we can actually access to the different strata or levels of details of the text by this zooming in and out. I thought also of the possibility to change the perspective by using different magnifying glasses, what you have here represented in different colors. And for instance, we can imagine, and I will show an example, we can imagine that we can expand a Z-lexia actually following different perspectives. So for instance, if you have a novel, you can expand a fragment going deeper into the psychology of a character that it is present in that fragment. And this will be by zooming with a certain magnifying glass. Or you can zoom in on the same fragment, but with another magnifying glass, which is not about the development of character or their psychology, but it is about the historical or cultural context of the novel. And that can bring more light to that fragment from this perspective, which is different. Then the model was implemented via Z editor, so an application, a tool that I have created using Java, and XML TI representation. Actually, to each level of representation corresponds an XML file, and the relationship between the Z-lexias, the ancestors and descendants, or parents and children on the different levels, is actually managed via a system of identifiers in XML. But the interface is actually, and the process of transformation from text to XML is transparent to the user. And I will show now a few examples. So I recorded this to see the Z editor. And first, it is, sorry again for the noise, it was my keyboard when recording. Actually, the idea is you have a text, you save it as an XML document on the first level, and then you can expand it. The expansion can be just simply adding more text, or you can add an image, a paraphrase on the second level, or even a different text, but that can be considered more detailed in a certain logic of this expansion. And what you saw here, it was a simple demonstration of how the text was expanded, and then after expansion, how it can be actually accessed via zoom in and zoom out. Then there is another example here when we can think of an already existing text, but that we can put it in the device and reorganize it according to a certain logic of stratification by levels. And here, actually, what we have, it's a fragment from Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino, when we have this idea of the city striving always for the new, and people being always in search of the new, and to put it on a surface level, and then we can actually zoom in into a fragment and add the perspective of the accumulation of old in a city. and even add some kind of representation that it is not in the original text, like this image, which was actually produced by Gérard Tuniac, and it was not included in the original text. So we can make the text grow following this idea of new and then adding details of the old, how the old is accumulating in a city where people are always and always going to use new things. And then we can also expand with a visual dimension, or we can add more layers of interpretation to this. And this is actually related to the annotation, so the use of the metaphor to actually annotate a text. And here there is an example from A Midsummer Night's Dream, where we have a fragment, conversation between Hippolyta and Theseus. Then we can zoom in and actually add on the deeper levels, add comments and interpretation and analysis from Stefan Greenblatt's Will in the World, which is actually a new historicist approach than interpreting a text by trying to reconstruct the historical and cultural actually context that can have inspired the text. And we can move deeper and deeper from this text to a particular interpretation of the fragment, but going deeper into biography of Shakespeare and his creative laboratory, and also to the use of these different artisans that maybe were part of his work at the theater, Globe Theatre in London, and then moving gradually to consideration or analysis of the theater at that time as magic. And then we can zoom out and retrieve again the original text that was actually explored on deeper levels and analyzed via the lens of Greenblatt's analysis. And another example, it is related to the change of perspective that I mentioned before, and which is inspired by the Dictionary of the Khazars. For instance, sorry. And again, sorry for the background. So when I recorded, actually, yes, I also recorded the sound, the background. So there is the Dictionary of the Khazar, when you have an entry in the dictionary about the Princess Ate, that if we look with the green magnifying glass, we can consider that the princess actually converted to Islamism. Or if we consider the red, so it is her conversion to Christianity, which is recorded. Or even more, changing the perspective, we can see another point of view according to which Ate actually converted to Judaism. And like this, we can have the same fragment, but using different filters and different perspectives. We can actually go and expand on different levels, deeper and deeper, going to different threads of the logic that even can be sometimes contradictory. And I think it is quite usual today when we are discussing the reality to have different perspectives and point of view that sometimes can be in contradiction one with the other. And finally, so I will show another example of what I call self-reflective text that can be maybe an author or a student who is writing his thesis and actually facing this complex of the white page, then trying to go into deeper levels by saying a bit more about the initial idea. For instance, this livre sous la loupe, or this idea of zoomable text, and developing actually how the idea came, and then we can imagine that the text can be further expanded from just a few paragraphs or few ideas to a full text. So the text is self-reflective in this case because it also keeps in a way his own history. Because if I can go with zoom in and zoom out and have some kind of a history of the initial ideas and how they were developed on the deeper levels. But we can also imagine other kinds of triggers. So you can put on the page some ideas at the beginning and then developing them by extension and creating a full document or a book just starting with a few paragraphs. So now I am coming to the conclusion and the future work that is needed in this area. Actually, what I tried to show was a series of examples of metaphor that are using the concept of scale and using it actually to restructure or making us to imagine new ways of analysis or of dealing with data at different scales, or of creating some kind of cartographic representations using multimedia documents and that can capture tangible and intangible dimensions of place. It is as well this idea of interrelating different levels and keeping track or paying attention to the changes that occur from one level to the other in this idea of long zoom, macroscope, and scalable reading when dealing with data or with different forms or different concepts. Then it was the idea of zoomable text, having this stratification of text and sometimes adding images on several levels of details that can actually be used to implement different mechanisms for expansion, for interpretation as deformance or reorganizing the text and putting in another form to follow a certain logic, and annotation of a text with another text or with our own interpretation. This idea of filtered expansion and changing of perspective and of developing the text that can be also keeping its own history by the mechanism that is offered by the device. And the idea is that this usage of metaphor can actually be seen as being probably helpful in for pedagogical goals, or for analyzing, or for imagining actually new paradigms of knowledge creation or of knowledge exploration. And I think there is still work to be done in this domain. So maybe there is a need for a systematic understanding of this concept of scale and of its use in digital humanities. How to have, for instance, a clearer picture of this whole spectrum from large to small, from distant to close, global to local, and all the levels in between. And what is actually the role in creating these new forms of knowledge or of exploration of knowledge by means of digital and humanistic methods. So I think this combination can create innovative ways of dealing with knowledge in digital humanities. And this potential should be probably explored more. And for that, we also have a call for participation. So we are intending to work on an edited volume where scholars in digital history and digital humanities are invited to contribute with their perspective to this metaphor of scale and to this concept that I think it is a rich one that can be further exploited and yeah, to create new paths of interpretation and building knowledge and cognitive scenarios. So I would like to thank you for your attention and yeah, looking forward to your questions or your perspective from your own experience to the use of scale in your projects.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Florentina. Wow, what a rich talk. Okay, questions or comments? Alors, un tout grand merci à Florentina pour cette conférence vraiment riche et intéressante. Maintenant, est-ce qu'il y a des questions, des commentaires, des suggestions? On a personal note, I'm very happy that you ended up with that call for contributions. Yes, Florentina is currently editing a very interesting project, a book project, right? On the topic that she presented today, and mainly focusing on the metaphor of scale in digital humanities. So for all who are interested, it's an open call, so please consider submitting. While you guys are, yes, there is a question. Oui, Sylvie.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Merci pour la conférence. Je vais le dire en français parce que ce sera plus facile.
Oui, bien sûr. Oui.
Je me demandais s'il y avait déjà des exemples concrets en fait d'édition comme ça.
Des exemples concrets d'édition. Est-ce que vous pouvez développer un peu plus la question?
Ça veut dire que, par exemple, de textes ou d'œuvres qui ont déjà été où il y a déjà des informations qui ont été mises dans le texte et où on voit déjà, enfin, on peut déjà expérimenter ça en fait. Comme vous le montrez, comme vous avez montré les exemples, je me demandais s'il y avait déjà des exemples, mais à plus grande, sur des plus grands textes, avec les cartes, avec toutes les informations qui peuvent être mises derrière, en fait.
Oui, merci pour votre question. En effet, oui, je travaille sur l'interface que j'ai l'intention de mettre en open source. Et oui, il serait cette idée. J'ai expérimenté avec textes de différentes longueurs, mais bien sûr pas à une grande échelle. mais c'est mon intention de mettre l'interface en open source pour les gens, pour que les gens puissent expérimenter eux-mêmes avec des textes comme ça et voir si ça marche. Par exemple, j'avais imaginé dans le cas de Auerbach Mimesis, je pense dans chaque chapitre, il commence avec un certain texte et puis il commence à ajouter des commentaires, des analyses qui vont en plus détaillées. Donc peut-être on peut imaginer quelque chose comme ça. Donc on met le livre, on le reconfigure, on le restructure. Donc sur le premier niveau, on met déjà les textes eux-mêmes qui sont analysés et après on ajoute les annotations et on fait grandir le livre et on obtient le livre d'Auerbach comme ça en ajoutant sur différents niveaux les analyses. J'ai fait aussi une expérimentation, donc j'ai fait une expérimentation avec ça, mais aussi avec le livre de Peter Brook, oui, qui est en effet un livre de Global Microhistory et Vermeer's Hat. Et en effet, Peter Brook, il commence sa conception du livre à partir de certains tableaux de Vermeer. Et après, il va de là et il commence à discuter certains aspects historiques de la période de Vermeer. Mais peu à peu, il ajoute des détails de la création des réseaux de commerce global. Et il va de cette perspective micro en partant de quelques tableaux à cette perspective macro, comment par exemple le commerce de peau pour créer des chapeaux a été élargi à partir des Pays-Bas jusqu'au Canada et puis en Chine et comment tout ce réseau de commerce global a été créé. Donc on peut imaginer, j'ai fait aussi des petites expérimentations avec l'outil. On peut par exemple mettre sur différents strates, sur différents niveaux, d'abord les peintures et puis on ajoute peu à peu des niveaux d'expertise et d'analyse du livre qui sont en effet graduellement mis sur la page, mais qu'on n'a pas ça sur la page, on a juste le texte qui est comme ça linéaire. Mais si on a la possibilité de construire cette stratification et de voir les différents niveaux, on peut aussi reconstruire le livre et le reconsidérer dans le dispositif comme ça.
C'est super intéressant, merci.
Merci à vous.
Merci, and thank you so much for the answer, Florentina. I was thinking while we're percolating other questions or comments, could you please demo a little bit your interface?
Yes, I think also there is a question from Karina. I don't know if I have to first answer her question and then
it's up to you. Let's get the question first. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Florentina, for your talk and for this intriguing topic you've discussed. Most of your examples were literary novels, I think, from what we saw. And as a literary scholar, I'm trying to think ahead of how this would be useful for analyzing novels, for instance. And I wonder what your ideas are. Is this a way to manually annotate a novel and while doing that, analyzing the structure of a novel? Or may there also be something the other way around, for instance, that you could automatically distinguish, for instance, the different voices in a text or the parts that are written in present or in past tense, and after that choose to analyze those in separate strands or something? So what are your ideas in that direction?
Thank you, Karina, for this question. Indeed, I think it is a very good question. And yes, at the beginning, so there is the possibility to, as you said, to create these layers manually. And it is how the editor is working at the moment. But of course, I started experiments to try to detect and to increase actually the tool by some modules, trying to detect these different levels if possible. And I made some first experiments with topic modeling, for instance, on the book of Peter Brook with Vermeer's hut, and trying to see if we can detect actually these elements that are going from a description of the painting to more from some specific topic to more generic about the global history and of the global trade, how it was created. And this work is still work in progress. I also experimented a little bit with between centrality. I think it was a text texture tool at a certain point available, and so yes, I am thinking also to detect and maybe what are the shifters, what kind of preposition, what kind of elements can be the signal that actually the author is switching from one level to the other and trying to detect this automatically. But this is work in progress, and yeah, I hope I will address it for the book. And
That
yes.
sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you so much. Okay, maybe now be the good time for a quick demo.
Okay, so
If you
I
think
will.
it's doable, if you think it's doable. I mean, I caught a glimpse of it before the talk, and that's why.
Okay, so I will try. I will stop sharing the presentation. I think it is still shared, and then yeah, just I will try to share this. Okay, so can you see now A Midsummer Night's Dream?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was yeah, this idea. You can see here what it is on white. It means that it is something beneath this fragment. So I can zoom in. If it is gray, it means that it is nothing. So when I explore, I can also see a little bit like that. And the cursor is also changing. And if I go like this, I can see the text from Greenblatt that it is added, and I can also scroll down and go to other fragments that appear. What you see here as a number, it is actually the number of the level, which is also displayed on the level number here. I am on the third level from 4 levels, and the idea of the dyslexia is 2.1.1. As I said, there is a system of identifiers that is keeping track of the relation between parents and children. And so I can move now. I am on the this fourth level, and then I can zoom out. But I can also zoom out gradually, so I cannot zoom out on the other levels which are not expanded. I have to go gradually to one level up to the other to the surface level. And yeah, maybe I can also show the other one with the switch of the magnifying glass. So I will stop sharing this, and I will try to share the other one. let's see where it is. Yes, the dictionary of the Khazars. Oh no, now it is something. Okay. I will yeah, go back to the. Sorry, I will share it again.
Yes.
And I will open.
Yeah, the
from
way
that.
Teams works, so no worries about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And then we'll get a question from Natalie, right?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's still. Just a moment. To me, it. Okay. I will try again to see if the sharing is working. If not, I can restart the application. So close the window, and if it is still. Okay. So I will try now. It is visible, right?
Yes.
So I will just open. I will go directly to the library. I have different copies of my libraries.
Yeah.
And
Handy.
okay, I will go to the dictionary of the Khazar, and I will start with the first level. I hope it is visible. And yeah, it is this idea of switching the different magnifying glasses to see the and zooming in and out to see the different perspectives from the red, green, and
Screen
yellow.
sharing is still on the Midsummer Night's Dream.
Ah, sorry.
That's fine. No, we got the picture. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry about that.
Right. Okay, please, Natalie, shoot.
Okay. In this case, I will stop sharing and I will
Yeah.
ask. I will respond. I will answer.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Natalie.
Thank you for this really interesting talk. It's given me lots to think about. And it was really nice to see the demo you were just doing of your interface. And I wondered if you could speak a little more about your theory of the zoomable interface. It's very striking to me as compared to hypertext models we're so familiar with, that the text itself, there are no obvious signs like underlined links or icons in the text, which we see in many tools for annotation and so forth. So I wonder if you could speak a little more about the theories that have governed your design of your interface.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, actually, what I wanted to develop, it was going to another kind of paradigm. So yeah, it is that paradigm of hypertext, and we have Afternoon of Story by Joyce and everything. And I wanted to, and also there were some comments about the links. Of course, they are working by analogy, and it is very useful to go from one place to the other. And my idea was, I also read some comments that this can be at a certain point disorienting because you can lose your context. And my idea was with this zooming and scale to try also to keep the context. So to enlarge it and to bring actually the content which is added in the context, and to bring this content when you are the island where you are going, when you are clicking on the link. Actually, the idea would be to bring it here in a certain way, of course. So it was the idea to try in a way to keep the context and yeah, to have maybe this possibility of not disorienting yourself. But yeah, it would be interesting to combine as well, to have also links. I can also imagine that in the Z text you can also have hyperlinks that are going somewhere else. But also within this model of zoomable text, the details that you bring in, actually you keep also and bring them inside the concept, like in a fractal, where you can add, you can. It is a Mandelbrot example of the coast of England. When you measure it with different sticks of different lengths, when you have another level of detail, that you have the general line, but then this becomes more and more unfractuous, but you keep in a way the context. And yeah, in the example that I cited from Stephenson, it was also the idea that Nell, the little girl, knew how the book is going to the end, but not all details, all that she can learn around the line by actually interrogating, driven by her curiosity and asking more details to the book, but in a way keeping the context. So this was a little bit the idea.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for both the question and the answer. Thank you so much. And je crois que Sylvie, c'était une réponse pour ta question aussi sur les exemples qui sont déjà
oui, tout à
disponibles
fait.
ou non. Voilà, Florentina a présenté l'interface et la modalité dans laquelle on peut utiliser, et elle est en train de faire le logiciel open access, n'est-ce pas, open source. Et nous sommes bien sûr très intéressés de voir ça, de voir une présentation open source de logiciel. Et une autre chose que je voudrais souligner est que les couches multiples du texte, n'est-ce pas, sont en effet encodées en XML et TI, n'est-ce pas? Ce sont des concepts qu'on a discutés dans notre cours, et on a fait des explorations, n'est-ce pas, sur ça. Et je suis heureux de voir que voilà, les applications et le logiciel que Florentina a développé a utilisé des approches et des méthodes qui sont très, très actuelles et très importantes pour nous tous et toutes. Alors, merci encore pour ça. Et merci Sylvie pour la question.
Et j'ai encore une petite question, en fait, si je peux. Je me demandais si maintenant tout est manuel, il n'y a rien qui est automatisé, par exemple, pour reprendre des informations point de vue cartographie ou point de vue relations commerciales ou point de vue tableau, justement. Enfin, moi, ça m'intéresse super fort, en fait, ce niveau-là. Je me demandais si tout devait être manuel, ou bien il y avait un moment où vous comptiez reprendre des informations d'une façon automatique.
Oui, c'est vrai, à ce moment-là, c'est manuel, mais je suis en train de travailler sur une possibilité automatique d'ajouter une dimension automatique au logiciel. Par exemple, d'essayer de détecter, si c'est possible, les différents niveaux de spécificité, de particularité, de généricité du texte. Quels sont les éléments, par exemple, qui aident à faire le switch d'un domaine à l'autre, mais aussi ajouter, par exemple, name entity recognition pour détecter des noms de lieux, parce que vous avez mentionné le côté cartographique, peut-être de connecter ça avec, je ne sais pas, avec des représentations de location, géolocation et des choses comme ça. Et je suis en train de penser et de développer ces éléments. J'ai commencé en utilisant avec des expériments en topic modeling pour le moment. Mais oui, je vais étendre tout à fait. Effectivement, donc c'est ce côté automatique et voir dans quelle mesure, parce que ce n'est pas sûr, dans quelle mesure un logiciel est capable de détecter, peut-être de façon semi-automatique, guidée par le chercheur ou des choses comme ça. Mais en tout cas, bien sûr, il sera intéressant d'avoir ce côté automatique ajouté ou semi-automatique ajouté à l'interface.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci, merci. Oui, tout à fait. Les aspects manuels et automatiques sont imbriqués, sont tout à fait présents tous les deux, n'est-ce pas? Les annotations, les commentaires qu'on peut, et la dimension créative, n'est-ce pas? D'interactionner avec le texte. Je crois que c'est très intéressant. So I found that really, really interesting that you have the Z reading and the Z writing, right? And these two components kind of overlap, right? There's creativity in the Z reading, right? And there's also sort of a critical approach in the Z writing, right? You dig deeper and deeper into the text or into the map of the various levels of the text, right? And it's a creative way of looking at it. And on the other hand, reading it can be itself creative. So I find that, and the way in which all the speaking of Natalie's question, the way in which it looks like during the theoretical intro that you made, all those possible metaphors kind of converge into your computational approach to the text, right? All the metaphors that you mentioned related to scale and zoomable text, etc. They all kind of they're there, right? In your computational approach and in your zoomability, in your something that didn't emerge quite clearly, I'm afraid, but I would love to highlight that, is that zoomable text, the concept per se, is yours, right? You coined this concept, right? So we should highlight that as strongly as possible. And I think it's a significant contribution on your part, right? And the term per se kind of involves a sort of metaphor, right? Zoom, the fact that text becomes zoomable. It kind of, draws on all the theory that you've mentioned, and not only, right? The cartographic approach or vision of text and so on and so forth. We got another question coming from. Yes. Yes, Corentin. Oui, s'il te plaît. En français ou en anglais? Yeah, turn on your mic, please. Le micro.
Sorry. I will do it in French. It's okay?
Oui, oui, oui.
Perfect. Je vais pouvoir réagir directement à ce que tu viens de dire, Chris, sur ce concept que j'ai trouvé vraiment intéressant, stimulant en vous écoutant. Et en fait, moi, je l'ai pris aussi depuis mon regard de poéticien. Et j'essayais de réfléchir à un texte, une œuvre qui puisse fonctionner de la sorte, qui soit vraiment un zoomable texte. Et en fait aussi dans les liens de porosité entre univers livresque et univers numérique. Et ces liens qui qui se jouent de plus en plus fort ces dernières années, je me suis dit que le dossier M de Grégoire Bouillet, qui est une œuvre qui date de 2018, si je ne dis pas de bêtises, pourrait vraiment être exploré à partir de ce concept assez stimulant. Et donc, en deux mots, le dossier M, c'est un roman foisonnant en 2 tomes qui chacun font plus de 1000 pages, mais c'est aussi une œuvre qui connaît toute une série d'extensions qui sont hébergées sur un site internet et où on est vraiment dans cette logique d'amplification. Et donc voilà, c'est vraiment une porte ouverte par rapport à cette œuvre-là, mais je me suis dit que dans cette réflexion sur des dynamiques poétiques qui peuvent se jouer par rapport à ces enjeux, c'est peut-être un élément qui pourrait vous intéresser. Voilà.
Ah oui, oui, merci. Alors, c'est le dossier M par?
Oui, le dossier M de Grégoire Bouillet. Mais je peux le noter dans la conversation.
Ah, ok, merci. Merci. Oui, Florentina, vous pouvez répondre en anglais ou en français.
Ça va. Merci beaucoup. Oui, s'il vous plaît, mettre la référence dans le chat. Oui, parce que c'est intéressant. Oui, relatif à ce que Chris disait aussi auparavant. Oui, et relative à la question d'avant, il y a aussi ce côté, il y a un côté automatique parfois, parce que quand même, parce que oui, quand l'auteur écrit le texte et puis fait l'expansion, ça c'est automatiquement converti en XML. Donc les Z-lexies qui ont été sélectionnés et pour être étendus, ils sont automatiquement convertis en XML TI avec ce genre de mécanisme de management oui, qui gère en effet les liens entre les Z-lexis qui sont parents et les enfants, les ancêtres et leurs descendants. Donc il y a ce côté, de ce point de vue, oui, il y a ce côté. Et ce côté créatif aussi, parce que quand l'auteur va étendre le texte, il y a certains stimuli ou qui le font étendre le texte. Et du côté, donc dans le Z-writing, donc c'est ça le côté créatif, on a des mots qui nous inspirent pour voir étendre, et peut-être ça c'est relié à la question que vient de poser notre collègue avant. Donc, des expansions poétiques ou autres types d'expansions de texte. Et aussi du côté de Z-reading, ça c'était Z-writing, du côté de Z-reading, c'est cette idée aussi d'exploration par la suite de la curiosité du lecteur. Donc, s'il est curieux, s'il y a quelque chose dans le texte qui attire son attention ou sa curiosité, il va cliquer là-dessus par un zoom-in. Et peut-être dans ce cas-là, j'avais pensé aussi d'ajouter un côté d'enregistrer les mouvements du lecteur ou de lecteur, par exemple, pour voir son parcours et peut-être voir quels sont les points ou les Z-lexia qui ont attiré son attention pour les faire étendre et interagir en plus et voir plus de détails sur ça. Donc, je vais regarder dans le chat parce que la référence, je pense, c'était très intéressant. Le dossier M de Grégoire Bouillet. Merci.
Merci Corentin, merci beaucoup. Alors, est-ce qu'il y a des autres questions, commentaires? OK. C'est un sujet très, très intéressant et très riche. Alors, on peut s'arrêter maintenant et continuer la fois prochaine. Je vous encourage de rester en contact avec Florentina. J'ai collé aussi le projet qu'on a mentionné, le livre, sur la direction de Florentina. Vous êtes invité de soumettre votre proposition pour ce livre. Je crois que c'est un projet très, très, très intéressant et vraiment, vraiment actuel et nécessaire pour le numérique en général. Et voilà, c'est un autre lien. Oui, Flammarion, oui, merci. Il y a une autre question en anglais. There's another question regarding making the slides available. Well, we will, as a matter of fact, we will make the recording available, and the recording involves the slideshow. We're just going to review the recording, and particularly for Florentina, we'll have to go through it whenever she gets a chance to, and then once I have her approval, that's what I do with all the TNT lectures that I post them on our channel, and you can always go back to them whenever you feel like. Alors, un tout grand merci à Florentina. Thanks so much, Florentina, for this really, really stunning talk, and for telling us about your amazing project and your amazing approaches to text. Metaphorical, but also very effective and as you said, tangible and non-tangible at the same time. Thank you. I think the Paris themselves were quite impressed with your talk. And we will stay in touch, like I said, and I encourage everybody who attended today, and I will make sure to further disseminate your call for papers and your work, your extremely interesting work on text analysis and Zoomable text per se. So we'll stay in touch. Je vais faire une annonce en ce qui concerne l'événement prochain de notre série de conférences pour décembre, aussi en ligne, en distanciel sur Teams, à 15h30. Le professeur Michael Sinatra de Montréal, voilà, encore une fois, Montréal est présent ici. Et Corentin aussi est présent ici, qui a une connexion très, très forte avec Montréal. Le professeur Michael Sinatra de l'Université de Montréal, qui est aussi le président de CRIN, le Centre de recherche interdisciplinaire pour les humanités numériques, une institution très, très importante au Québec, au Canada et au monde entier, va donner une conférence bilingue en français et en anglais, comme j'ai dit, décembre. L'après-midi, restez à l'écoute pour le détail sur le lien Teams. Mais c'est un événement en 2 étapes et j'espère que ça s'applique à Florentina aussi. Pour Michael Sinatra, on va présenter, comme j'ai dit, la conférence en décembre en ligne, mais ça va être suivi par une conférence en présentiel au printemps. Il va nous visiter en printemps et voilà. Je crois que ça serait très, très intéressant et sa visite va impliquer une autre conférence, mais aussi des réunions, des discussions avec notre étudiants, chercheurs, etc. Un grand merci encore à Florentina. Thank you so much for this really inspiring talk. We'll stay in touch and we'll hope to see you soon again, and I hope that as many as possible will submit to your amazing project, to the book that you're editing. Thanks so much again.
Thank you so much for this invitation, and to everyone who joined and for the interesting questions. And please feel free to contact me to continue the discussion. And if you have a contribution to propose, I will be very happy to read your proposals. Thank you again, and goodbye.
Thank you, goodbye. Alors, pour les étudiants en LFIAL 2010, s'il y a quelqu'un qui veut parler avec moi sur le projet, on se reverra dans un instant sur le groupe Teams de notre cours, OK? Merci encore, Florentina. Au revoir. Au revoir à toutes et à tous.
Au revoir.